Winning is not a sometime thing, it's an all-the-time thing. You don't win once in a while, and you don't do things right once in a while. You do them right all the time. Winning is a habit.
Great moments are born from great opportunity.
Wins and losses come a dime a dozen. But effort, nobody can judge effort. Because effort is between you and you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the inaugural edition of Inside the Coach's Playbook. I'm Tom Moore, and this is a show dedicated to bringing you the latest news on Pioneer football at Hill Murray. Today, we're pleased to bring you the new head football coach of the Pioneers, a former 8-year NFL linebacker for the Minnesota Vikings, Pete Bercich. Now, Pete, we've talked a lot of football over the last few years on our show together, but now you get to return to your high school football roots. You got to be thrilled about this challenge. Tell the Hill Murray followers what attracted you to this challenge of coaching.
Well, getting a chance to talk with Bill Lechner, and it was really Matt Burke who shot me a text and said, I need to talk to you. So since it's Matt, I said, all right, I'll give him a call, and he calls me back and he says, you need to talk to a buddy of mine at Hill Murray. It's one of his daughters went there, and Bill Lechner, who's the athletic director and a legendary hockey coach. They have a very, very good boys and girls hockey program there. And so I decided, all right, sure, I'll because it's Matt, I'll talk to Bill. And then, so there's been reasons why I haven't been able to coach. A lot of it has to do with, I have another job outside of the broadcasting that takes me out of town, or used to take me out of town quite a bit. And when you can't dedicate a certain period of time or a certain time every day, it's very, very hard to help out a program. So I kind of stayed away. I let my sons, my oldest is going to be a junior, coached him up through grade school, and then decided I'd coach my younger one up through grade school as well. And, but all the objections I had were kind of overcome. So, Coach Lechner talked me into coming in. And when I came in, that's what really sold me. It was getting a chance to see the school. And it was like, for me, it was like going back to high school. I went to high school, Providence Catholic. It's in New Lenox, Illinois. It's right on the border of Joliet. About 200 kids per class. It was probably the greatest 4 years of my life. And from the colors to the Catholic school to pretty much everything, it reminded me of there. And it just felt like home. So I'm thrilled to be coaching again. I'm thrilled to be director of development for the school itself. So I'll be heavily involved in the financial end for the school. And just a great place. So I pulled the trigger and made the move, and haven't looked back yet.
Well, you got some kids coming up through high school, and talk about coaching your kids up. You obviously played at Notre Dame, you played in the NFL, but you're no stranger to coaching. You coach in the NFL too. How does that experience of being a linebacker coach in the NFL come into play here to help you be a more successful coach?
Well, it's amazing as a head coach, you do coach, but you spend so much of your time managing other things. You have the booster clubs, you have the equipment, the practice schedules, the fields that have to be painted and made sure you can go. All the different equipment, what you have, what you need, game day operations, game day responsibilities, and then then you have the coaches' responsibilities on game day. And these coaches, they're not highly paid, so they all have other jobs. So you try to have a camp, and then you send out a email and say who can be there, and you got to look at the 4 or 5 of the 10 guys that can show up and where they're going to help, what they're going to be able to do, and then you have to put the plan together and the practice plan. So there's the first year through, it's challenging. There's a lot of work, a lot of foundation that needs to be put down. So next year I look forward to going into a season with at least one off season under my belt. But you coach, but you spend a lot of your time, or most of your time, at least right now for me, organizing and making sure that practice can be had and you have everything that you need.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, you mentioned a little bit, you and I both grew up on football. I played in Texas under the Friday Night Lights at a big public school. You talked about the suburb of Chicago. You played in Joliet at a private school. Yet we both experienced kind of a lifetime of memories and friendships in the process we still have today. Can you tell the players what high school football means to you and what they can expect to gain for participating as a member of the Pioneer football team?
Well, for me, my high school years, there were some good times and bad times, but overall, they were the best 4 years of my life, and the friends that I have and the relationships I have from high school, I still have. I talk to a handful of guys maybe from college every once in a while, but we're not close. I got a couple of friends in the NFL, a few of which that you've heard on my website, Dixon Edwards and Robert Smith, that I've kept in touch with and kept close with. But my good friends, my best friends, the guys that stand up in your wedding, those are all high school buddies. And I, I've already told them once, there's nothing like going on the field and kicking ass with your best friends. And that's really what they want to do. And that's what they need to do. And they will always, always remember it. And I've been around this game. It's almost 20 years. I think it's my 20th year with the Vikings, 4 years of college at Notre Dame, 4 years of high school. And I was only a champion once, and that was in high school. And 1987, my sophomore year, was up on varsity, and we ended up winning state that year. And, don't try to, some people may, kind of naysay it and say, it's just a high school, it's just a state championship, It means so much to all of us as a group, and it ties all of us together that were around there in 1987. Yes, 1987, quite a long time ago. But being a champion doesn't come along too often. A lot of things have to go your way, and you have to do so many things the right way. And there's so much work that goes into it that it's not an easy thing, and it's not something that I for sure do not take for granted.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, it's not only that, but it also excites the student body. I can tell you, Pete, from my own experience, I know when that prom came along, I dated a couple levels above my capability here. Football didn't hurt on that.
Well, you told me you dated a 10, but I think it was more like 5 2s, and that doesn't count.
I got to ask you this: as people look for their 10s here, you come into a job that's really seen 5 different head coaches in the last 6 years. How do you bring stability to a program that's seen such a change in leadership?
Well, what's happened in the past, you can't control, but you do need it, and you do need to keep it in mind. And a lot of times, the instability, the guys that are turning over, the guys that are coming and going, that's a big deal. And it's a big deal for the kids. And I do think my background in football it helps bring some credibility, that I'm not just the next guy or the other guy that's going to be here for a year, that kind of thing. And for the coaches that have been here and have worked here, one other thing that I learned very quickly is the teaching jobs are so important, and that all of these head coaches love to be in the building. It just helps with transit time and the odd hours that you have to be there. You have your summers basically off as a teacher for the most part, so you're able to run camps, you're able to develop these kids in the weight room and work with them all summer long. So those jobs have pulled away a couple head coaches in the last few years, and I'm not the first the first NFL coach to actually coach at this high school. Brooks Bollinger was here a couple years ago, and they had some success. So I think the pattern's been set a little bit, and I'm ready. I'm just ready to roll. There's something different when you walk into a building and you know that the program is yours and that you're in charge of it. It's a lot of pressure. It gets you out of bed in the morning. I'm constantly thinking about the team and what it needs, and this is still, we haven't even started camp. We're weeks out from starting camp, so it definitely keeps you young, and it definitely keeps you going.
Well, I know you love a challenge, but you are taking a team that won just once in 2015 against New Life Academy, and that was late in the season. What kind of steps are you planning to take this year to yield more success on the field in 2016?
There's what's neat about coaching is there's some truisms. There are truisms that in the game, it doesn't matter what level that you're coaching, whether it be grade school kids or NFL men. The easiest way or the best way to turn a very, very good football player and a very, very good athlete into an average athlete is by getting him to think too much. And so simplification is definitely something that needs to be done from a scheme standpoint. Coaches, it's our job to be able to know what routes beat what coverage and what runs can beat what fronts and those kinds of things. But if your fundamentals are not right, if your feet aren't right, then the rest of it doesn't really matter. And it's not important what we know; it's important what our players know. So being able to weed out the elements of the game that are important, what plays do you expect at certain points in the field and field positions and things like that. That awareness of the game is crucial. It's important. It makes for big plays and things like that. So I'm just excited to teach the guys about the game of football. I still think it's the best game. I think it's the best sport that there is. You look at a guy like John Randall, Texas A&I, Kingsville, undrafted rookie free agent, and because of how hard he worked, he ended up making it into the Hall of Fame. It doesn't happen in basketball. You have to be a certain height, certain physical characteristics, to be an effective basketball player in the NBA. In football, as long as you have enough of the enoughs and you're willing to work harder than anybody else, it can take you a very, very long way.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, one of the things, the challenges that you have is you've got a relatively youthful roster here, and you've only got a handful of seniors returning to your squad. How are those seniors important, Pete, to your program to bring along the younger players?
I think there's a lot of leadership that you hope and then that you expect to get out of them. These guys have been through some good times and been through some bad times, and you're only given 4 years, maybe a couple of which you can play varsity football. And so that window closes quickly. We all look back on those days. They just seem to have gone by in a blink of an eye. And so their time is limited. So for me, I need to do everything I can to make sure that their experience as seniors is the best that it can be. And the other thing is every team has an identity. No two teams are alike. They all have a certain characteristic, and the seniors are the ones that set that. The seniors are the ones that, are police up the locker room. They're the ones that build the character of the team, because every year that's going to be a little bit different. So they need to be the leaders on and off the field, and I expect that out of them.
Well, to be ready for the season, obviously it all starts with, summer conditioning. And I'm curious, what type of workouts and conditioning programs has the team been going through, and how is that off-season preparation vital to your team's success?
Well, at this age, you need to develop these young men, and unfortunately, you can only develop them as quickly as Mother Nature will allow. So you have some kids that are a little further along than others. Some kids are just more natural. I think from a strength training standpoint, certain positions, you need to have some mass, you need to have some weight. But the lifting and the strength prevents injuries. When you look at your joints and the forces that they have to absorb, your muscles act as shock absorbers, and if you don't have that muscle there and the strength in those muscles there, then all that force gets translated straight to ligaments and tendons, and that's when really bad things can happen. So the strength training is vital. I came in late, middle of June, so they were already pretty well in their way. I brought in Mike Morris, another former Minnesota Viking, who's had just a ton of experience in the weight room, putting together weight programs. He's can work with us for just a couple of weeks that he can. And one of the things that he did is we have 4:45 a.m. lifting time tomorrow, so it's going to be rise and shine and get in there and get your work done and be done before 6 a.m. even rolls around. So, sure. But the guys are fired up and ready to go.
Well, I was going to say, watch out for Morris. You got to warn your kids that he's apt to pull a prank on at any point in time.
For years, Matt Burke was the center for the Minnesota Vikings. But on fourth down, Matt Burke wasn't good enough. That's when you truly need to be great. Snapping the ball to a quarterback who has his hands firmly planted on your ass isn't that hard. Try to hit a squirrely punter 15 yards away with your head between your legs. Now that's greatness. That's Mike Morris, 13-year long snapper in the NFL, and one of the greatest ever. Go to Vikings.com and vote for Mike Morris. He was one of the 50 greatest Vikings. Mike Morris, greater than Matt Burke.
My name is Mike Morris, and I approve of that ad.
Mike, it's a thing. It's an amazing thing, to see someone in his element. And for Mike, coaching these kids and being in the weight room is what he belongs. It's what he needs to do. That's what he should be doing. And to see him with the kids out, they keep calling them kids, the young men, really in the weight room. To see him working like he does, it's awesome. It's just great to see him doing what he loves, and it's one of the things I think I'm taking away from all this is that you got to do what you love, man.
Absolutely. Well, starting next Monday, July 18, you begin your first summer practices. Coach, what are your expectations of the players at this camp?
I think to continue to develop them. There's a lot of evaluation that needs to go on, and that's something when you get a new coach. It's the good and the bad of it. The good side of it is that I have no preconceived notions of any of these kids, and I don't remember them from 3-4 years ago. So they are what they are, and that's the good, but that's also the bad. So guys who have done some good things and have some equity in the bank, they're going to have to prove themselves all over again. But for going into something like this, evaluation is really the big thing, and kind of figuring out what positions guys need to go in and where they fit and what I want to do defensively and what we want to do offensively. So it's that's what it's going to be about. And we'll be able to put pads on for a couple days at the end of the week, and and that's still one more thing. We got a lot of guys that look good in shorts. In the old days, we'd say they look like Tarzan, but they play like Jane. And there are some guys like that out there. So got to get them on the field, got to evaluate them under fire, and we'll plan on doing that a little bit this week as well.
Yeah, well, I want to remind everybody, you will be sore. I promise it goes away.
Yeah, pain. Well, it's like we say, pain is temporary, victory is forever.
Absolutely. Well, in the NFL and even in your job as a color analyst for the Vikings, you've been a big proponent of film study, and I know you plan to study film with the players almost every day during practice. And for any parent or player who's not used to seeing film to improve their game, what should they know about the importance of this process improving on-field play?
Well, I think it's critical. In this day and age, kids are used to videos, are used to electronics, and the huddle apps. The film at the high school level is every bit as robust as it was in the NFL level 10 years ago. You have the ability to get video on iPads on the sideline, technology that's not made available to the NFL for fairness issues and things like that. So technology is definitely wrapped itself around the game, and the game is taking it with open arms. So you got high school coaches, you got headsets on the sidelines and things like that. It's amazing the trickle down. So the nutrition has trickled down to these younger kids, and so has the technology. But film, you can garner some things from watching film, but you really have to be taught how to watch film and what to look for. And for parents, I think the main thing for them is the coach effort. Getting off the ball when the ball snaps, keeping your pads lower than the guy you're playing against, and they're running to the football. Any parent can do that. And if your kid is not doing those three things, then the rest of it is unimportant. The rest of it doesn't mean anything. You have to make sure that you do those three things. And once you get that established, then yeah, you got a chance and you can build on it and do some other things. But if you're not getting off the ball when the ball snapped, firing off the ball, you're not keeping your pads low, moving your feet, and not, working your rear end off to the whistle blows, then the rest of it doesn't matter.
Well, you said something really great that you always see in the film work, and that is players playing high. I'll tell you what, that's the biggest thing that you get. It's about playing with leverage, getting low, and you really don't know it as a player till you see it on that film. You see your rear end high, and you realize that guy's just going to push you right off the ball.
You're right, and it's very unnatural. And the thing about footwork and technique is it's something that you have to do. It's got to be like riding a bike, because in the course of a game, you can't be thinking about your footwork. You can't be thinking about, my pads low or my knees bent, my shoulders over my toes. Those are the things that you have to do so naturally. It has to become such second nature, because you're going to be tired. You're going to get hit. You're going to be beat up. And at those critical times is when you need it the most. So you can't be lining up thinking about those things. It just has to be second nature. So there's so much. It's a bit of drudgery in that you have to concentrate on the footwork and do the same things over and over and over and over again. But then again, going back to film, that's where you have to point out and say, hey, look at, a year ago, 6 months ago, 2 months ago, that was you. Now look at you. Look at how much better you've become, because you're not wasting any movement, because your fundamentals are sound. And once the kids know that if they listen and do what you tell them to do, and this is the same in the NFL, then they have faith in you. And then they'll just take what you're telling them and run.
Well, you talk about that drudgery, but it is a key element here, and you also talk about the NFL and how it helps them out. And you and I see this annually at the training camps for the NFL. But talk to your players and help them understand how this teamwork and the camaraderie that you build in these hot summer month practices spills over into the games.
Well, it's about trust, and Lou Holtz would always say, there's three things. When I looked at the roster, Of course, he's slurring and all that when he's talking. But he would say, I ask myself 3 things about each one of you guys. And he talked about trust, love, and commitment. Can I trust you? And so by trust, he means, can I trust you to do your job? Can I trust you to show up on time? Can your teammates trust you? Love, he would measure your love of the game. Do you love the game of football? And then commitment. Are you committed to excellence? Because Lou would always say, whatever you're aiming for, you're going to be just below that. If you aim to be perfect, you'll be great. If you aim to be great, you'll be good. If you aim to be good, you'll be average. If you aim to be average, you'll be below average. Mm-hmm. And those were the 3 things. And those are the 3 areas that these kids, these young men need to look at each other and see each other. And from a growth standpoint, you go to work and you meet and you know a lot of people, but you don't really truly know them. But when you play a sport like football with them, you know who you can count on. You know who's going to work. You know who's going to be there when the times are tough. And that type of trust it's hard to build in an office atmosphere. It's hard to build in a work atmosphere. But on the football field, it's something that needs to occur. And if it doesn't, and then it could be just another long season.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, here's some good news for everybody who's out there as a Pioneer quarterback, receiver, running back, the offensive line. A little known fact, Pete played tight end in high school, so he's not without some offensive capabilities. So Pete, talk to me, about your offense. What scheme will you run, and what are maybe some of the key players or design plays that you'll have to lean on to create explosiveness in this young offense?
As of right now, we don't know. You don't know. I'm not a big fan of the old school dive and the veer option offense and those kinds of things. More of a power, probably, type of running game, and it depends again on who you have and what players they have. You can't ask them to do too much, and you can't ask them to do things that they're not capable of. So the old saying is, the better your players, the thinner your playbook. If you have a bunch of studs, you should be able to just play some base things on offense and defense, and it should work. But sometimes guys need to have angles, and to do that, you have to be able to pull guys and get people outside, and that becomes harder mentally and more of a challenge. So we'll see. That's what I'm hoping to get. Yeah. You're hoping to get that and be able to capitalize on different things that the defenses give you.
But at this stage, first week of the camp, you're not planning to put the Fumblerooski in the playbook yet, are you?
No, not yet. No Fumblerooskis yet. No flea flickers yet. But there will be trick plays. You got to have them. They're part of the game.
No doubt. Now
so we'll work on it.
And all the Pioneer players now have to go look up what Fumblerooski is.
Big down. 3rd and a long 5. Heading to the end zone and very close to it was Dean Steinkuhler. He's in for a touchdown. I was totally fooled. The best technicians in the world goes into the end zone for a Nebraska touchdown. Now we're going to see how it happens, because I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's one of those guards around. Every good team has one, but you never figure to throw it. Watch Turner Gill come out. Dean Steinkuhler, number 71. He hands it to old Dean. The ball, he didn't hold it. He left it right on the ground. The only way you can give it to a lineman is you got to fumble it. He cannot take it and hand it to him. So what he did is he got it from the center and left it on the ground. Defensive guard, you talk about flexibility. Watch it. Now the ball goes right on the ground. Right on the ground. Steinkuhler picks it up.
He just left it there.
You can't tell me that that's not a planned play, but he has to fumble it.
I don't even know if it's legal anymore.
Oh, it may not be.
That's another whole thing, is just learning the playbook. The differences between the high school football and the NFL, and knowing how the clock is managed, and how so there's a ton. You need to know the rule book. Like the back of your hand, and if you don't, then you better get in the book. And so I got some meetings with some officials coming up and things like that, just to make sure we're all on the same page.
Well, obviously, you made a living as a linebacker at Notre Dame and in the NFL, so I know you have a soft spot for the defense. Any plans so far at this point in time of what the Pioneer defense is going to look like, maybe scheme-wise?
Well, it'll be different than it was a year ago. They ran a scheme last year I wasn't really too familiar with. But then it depends on the availability of talent. If you have you've got guys like linebackers, and you play more of a 3-4. If you have 4 good defensive linemen, then you could play a regular 4-man front like we did kind of in the NFL. Coverages be very, very similar. Some of the adjustments will be very, very similar. Some of the verbiage will even be the same. But you need to have contain. You need to have tackling. You need to be able to guys rally to the ball and know where they fit. If I'm the contain guy, then I got to turn the running back inside, and my help will be in pursuit, and those kinds of things. And that goes back to trust. And
to play your position, don't try to go out and freelance a little bit. You got to do where somebody expects you to be, and that's going to make the whole defense successful.
If it's that easy, then I'm blessed.
Well, Coach, that brings us to the end of Inside the Coach's Playbook, and we can't wait for the season opener against Tartan on September 1st. And we'll preview the matchup in the week leading up to the game. So until then, for Coach Pete Bercich, I'm Tom Moore. So long, everyone.
Run by McCardle. And that's the end of the run. Whoa. 9 yards. Pete Bercich makes a statement.